Greetings to you all. Welcome to Creative Writers. Pen crowns vision. Today's topic is left alone in lonely places. Our first poet is Mrs. Sumati. Being alone is good. Being lonely is better. But being alone in a lonely place is the worst. Never fall in such a hurt. The worst part of life is not holding the painful moments, not holding the painful memories, but the loneliness in it. Every individual need a trustworthy person to share his memories. Though you were left in a lonely place, be strong than depression. Be brave than loneliness. Nothing will exhaust you. Learn more from loneliness. Make a map out of it. Welcome the experience, but never make use of others' emotions just to fulfill your desires. Sumati ma'am, loneliness is the worst part, but we have the hope of the positive as a pleasant experience and fulfilling our desires. A lovely poem, my dear. Our next poet is Mrs. K. Gomati. Left alone in lonely places. Left alone in lonely places. Fear not of our loneliness. We can be alone nowhere, for the Almighty is present everywhere. Relish the company of eternal nature. Worry not about our uncertain future. Recollect the fun-filled days with our friends. Our broken heart, surely it mends. Hark back to the days of our childhood. Forget the painful days of manhood. Recall the enjoyable days at school. It makes our mind relaxed and cool. Alone in the lonely places, with nature as our friend. Dive into the sweet memories and relish without end. Your poem brought us our nostalgic childhood memories. Relishing on past thoughts certainly brings happiness. Loneliness remembers our sweet memories. Our next poet is Dr. Mary Suresh. Left alone in lonely places. Left alone in lonely places, the most painful phases, tearful solitude, inexplicable, trying to enable and stable. Strange thoughts entered, silence hours dwelt, sitting, suffering, sobbing and brooding, ensuring the aliveness pity, enlightens the sagacity through disappointments many, living in alone thorny. No, nobody, none, nothing. No, nobody, none, nothing. Living alone is thorny. The depressed feeling of the loneliness is brought out in a beautiful manner. Our next poet is Mrs. G. Sarila. Left alone in lonely places, as I entered into, and all relatives peeped into, with lovable faces, ready to embrace. But felt alone as left in a lonely place, the first day entering my in-laws' house, a place regarded as various religion as a spiritual evil and suffering depicted as the hell, beneath the earth as fire, the adults at the pandemic tire, the scenario of isolation. The brain calculates with IQ to solve its problem, the mind as CBI wanders in solemn. The heart as ISO stays ever with empathy, but the soul solely in sympathy, uniquely left alone ever to rest in peace, rip. Don't push the eye into the pit. Try to mingle, stay not, and being single. The feeling of isolation is clear when we are supposed to enter a new environment, but it's difficult to adjust. Neatly portrayed, ma'am. Our next poet is Mrs. Fuzzy, left alone in lonely places. Don't feel loneliness, a bitter feel. It's a space to unleash mental seal. Be cheerful when you are alone. It's a safe and comfort zone. Memories will take a long time. Thoughts, shallow and deep. Future may visualize, will have a grip. Don't get immersed, just have a dip. Make way for the feelings of flow. Maybe zigzag, not in a row. Later, find time to read aloud. As a writer, feel proud. Loneliness has built personalities. It's where they pour their ideologies. Loneliness has built personalities. A positive approach is being alone. Fasimam's poem has beautifully brought up that. Our next poet is Mrs. R. Erilarsi, left alone in lonely places. When I was left alone in a lonely place, my mind raised a question in a husky voice. Is this just to leave the person of unknown land? I searched here and there, but none were found. The sunset, the birds were hurrying to their nest. My heart was filled with horror and distress. My co-travelers and friends forget me, whom I trust. Luckily, the full moon raised a ray of hope like a mistress. That night I bitterly wept and later slept. Nature protected me like its guest. Surprisingly, the next day well-wishers traced me with great effort. I reached my residence with their timely help and support. Being alone felt bad, nature as a guest, rays of hope like a mistress, and hopeful rays. Our next poet is Mrs. P. R. Kalyani, left alone in lonely places. Today, I left alone in a lonely place, covered me with mud and all prayed for my peace. Went away from me, leaving me alone. My body laid deep and in soul, wandering alone. What am I? The soul or the body? Being a soul, I can move from here, but without body, how can you identify me? A whisper I heard nearby. Can anyone hear me? My identity became ashes. I am alone, wandering. Don't worry, I am here with you, I said. We need nothing. Visited all the places happily. No hunger, no money, no luxury. Then why we fight for these things when we live? Can even the body is temporary. Ego, frustration, wealth, anger, all unwanted things buried or fired with our body. Only the pure soul remains free and achieve the holy. Fighting this materialistic world is finally nothing. Well said, ma'am. Beautifully portrayed. Our next poet is Mrs. Rgayatri, left alone in lonely places. In the midst of a big forest, I was just walking with quest. There is no sign of human identity. There I experienced serenity. Birds were flying, animals were wandering, trees are rhyming, rivers flowing. Though I am feeling alone, but I realized a happiness there. We are living in the artificial world. There everything is marvelous. Under green world, just I open my eyes. It's my dream waves. I was left alone in a lonely place to enjoy the nature's place. Gayatri ma'am, being alone with nature is filled with unbound joy. Fantastic. Our next poet is Mrs. Anuradha. Left alone in lonely places. The love and affection of kith and kin, care and share of emotions, fun and frolic to forget worries, encouragement and engagement of religion with affectionate words, with all affection mixed with dish and evergreen wish, all left alone in one place when we face pandemic. The curse in this pandemic situation is well portrayed by Mrs. Anuradha. Our next poetess, Mrs. V.T. Kavita. Left alone in lonely places. Sometimes I used to think to leave me alone in a lonely place where no one knows where to disturb without people minding whom I am, what dress I wear, what I talk. It's better to be alone in lonely place to spend some time for us and with us. In our busy schedule, we tend to forget to look at mirror even, to enjoy nature and to nurture our mind. Loneliness is not a bane unless you use it as a boon. Make yourself alone in lonely place. You will discover your inner thirst and a way to quench it. Kavita ma'am, discovering oneself is really very, very important. We understood that. Our next poet is Mrs. Umadevi Kumar. Left alone in lonely places. My agony made me to search in place no one can reach, me and my memories of my angel's glories, deep into my ground, deep into my soul. I can feel her heal. In all my vision, I see her as fiction. Sounds around me rang her tone of plea. Why this to me, Mom? I miss you in my home. In the heavenly paradise, you are with Almighty. Realize you are my fairy. Save humanity from current worry. Words from the heart is clearly audible and it is really visible. Almighty is really watching all the painful words. Our next poet is Mrs. Jani. I don't want to be left alone in lonely places without having connection to people's faces. Yogis say that it's peaceful to be alone. Reluctant persons, only with insensible bone, normal human I, how could enjoy by own? Lonesome is also a disease, it's known. Sometimes I think of being alone in frustration. Surely it won't work, not permanent solution. Being in lonely places gives temporary freshness. Togetherness is the formula of life and happiness. Still in doubt, ask corona positive patients will know the illness of being alone in lonely places. Janaki ma'am, being alone as a patient is a curse. You have brought that very clearly from the depth of your heart. Our next poet is Mrs. J. Saranya. Solitude is a great attitude that reflects originality like a mirror, where there is neither pride nor prejudice, where you find value of yourself. No fabricated stories about you, either sense or sensibility you felt. The stable emotional state of maintain, where you find true of yourself. Cherish the moments you have, having all the source of energy. Take highly responsible decisions there. There, you are the artist of your life. Saranya ma'am, your originality reflects like a mirror. Loyalty with ourselves. Individual is the artist producer of life. Our next poetess, Mrs. Nirmala Nagarajan. Left alone in lonely places. Left alone in a lonely place, nothing to capture but empty space, haunted by some unknown face, breathlessly feeling the menace, longing to hear the voice of human, loathsome air that throws a frown. Helplessness breaks through the nerve, unnerved by the chilly severe. Dreadful dreams to touch with horror, about to leave but denied to restore, crimson colored clouds to be a terror, finding too hard just to ignore. Nirmala ma'am, left alone leads to longing to hear the voice of the humans. It is running like the waters of the brook. Our next poetess, Mrs. B. Deepa. Left alone in lonely places. Not left alone, but felt in the native place which I dwelt, resides my childhood phase. Left alone as a clown, wandered hither and thither in some town in search of identity I wither. Left alone with determination, escorted by a foreigner. Still sensed the scent of isolation, realized except him no one can be my partner. Recalling the past memories, search for identity, and sense the scent of isolation in your poem. Loved it. Our next poetess, Mrs. J. Jeril. Left alone in lonely places. If I were alone on an island, the sound of sea waves lashing on the rock would make me feel at home like mom's lullaby. The salt scented air would fall on my lungs, sprinkling salty water on memories in pebbles and shells of various hues would be the playthings. Areas till the little mermaid and the pardon would feed me with the delicious. The dancing dolphins would take me for a hide into the interior ocean. How do I feel? Water sprinkled on me. Is that you, Aria, my daughter? In all impatience, hands on her hip. Mama, how long small I try to wake. I feel hungry. Give me something. Nice imaginary life in an island. Our next poetess, Mrs. Princelyn Joan. At last, a day I got to think on me, a moment to rejuvenate me, an occasion to explore the new world which revolves around me, an opportunity to lay foundation for the fresh era and its beginning. Below the twinkling stars, under the canopy of trees, above the lush green grass, love to live the life of my primitives, chase the sweetest onomatopic words, sounds, wander with the darkness in lonely places to find the peace and solace from my nature's cradle. A beautiful credit to the nature and wonderful verse. Our next poetess, Mrs. P. Alice. Loneliness leads to depression. Spiritual life supplies confusion. Left alone in lonely places. Nature only pleasant traces. Nowadays, middle keeps immune. Connects us with uncountable mile. Maintains relationship even alone. Valid recollection cyclone. When we lost our loving soul. we left alone as a whole. Pray to Almighty to console the poor, helpless, longing soul. Mobile keeps us immobile, but connects the uncountable miles. Our next poet is Mrs. B. Sherin. Left alone in lonely places. Need a break to kick off the stress. Want to be free from all fuss. Burst out all emotions without tears. Also to bump out of unshed tears. Want to be left alone in a lonely place where the mind feel at ease. Like a pond, the mind stirs by a little pebble. Feeling lone doesn't mean to obscene of people. It's a stupid feel with lack of peace. To retain it, I need a lonely place. Loneliness is a feel to none to care. Hope, prayer will guide in despair. Such a place is nowhere to see. I am shattered when I disagree. Inside me, I have treasures of books, which guides me when I get caught in hooks. Finally, I figure out the place within me, in me. I explore the secret key. Loneliness is a feel of none to care. Reading books brings happiness. Being alone brings a secret key to know oneself. Our next poet is Mrs. Laxmi. Left alone in lonely place. I was left alone in a lonely place. That's nowhere other than my husband's house. That's very hard to left the birthplace and to enter a family full of new face. It was fully crowded with new ones, but I miss all my lovable ones. I'm unaware that my new house and my heart longs for mother's house. I felt I was left in a world of blind flower, and so I felt souls and leadership's master. Strange dedication to my relatives, ready to feel alone. It took me to adapt. A year to adapt to the new home. Many days I tried and tried in that unknown place, cause I felt it is left in the place, that's lonely place. But now to the condition is changed. School and house made me to fully charged, and now that is a beautiful family. As a daughter-in-law, I am doing my duties perfectly. Decision will happen rarely, but my husband solve issues carefully. Thus my family is running smoothly, and so I am coming to job peacefully. Now in this lockdown, my husband's longing to be alone, to be in lonely places, as he is suffering severely from family quarantine for the past 2 years. So thank you, dear creative writers. Keep penning, keep shining. You have expressed the COVID situation and quarantine reality